this old Wadkin, that record power extractor, and this Wadkin, I think it's called a BOAS planer, and the 3-phase inverter, which is that thing up on the wall there. I bought all of that for, I think it was 1,500 quid off an old joiner down the road that was shutting up shop. So we don't have the most perfect cutting out system. If we had a panel saw, or if we had a CNC, of course that would be fantastic, but it's been an issue of space and of course expense. So we've made do for now, but we are, as you'll have seen from our videos, we've been looking for some time at making the next step, but that investment in machinery is somewhat tied to making the step to a bigger workspace. I'll have to let Brady carry on with the cutting soon, but I'm just going to show you some of the documents we work from. So here's the design. Now, prior to even cutting the boards out, I've had to design it in great detail. That was a team effort between myself and Graham. And on this job, it involved quite a lot of back and forth. We had to remeasure the space, because after the initial survey, this whole space was cut out, reboarded. Everything was done with sound insulating plasterboard. So I've remeasured. The customer has come back with some changes, like the bed that's going to go here is a different size to the first drawing. And in summary, it took literally days to get to the point of a drawing that was fully resolved to the millimetre, with things lining up, for example, here, and this door ending up square topped, which was the way we wanted it. So that's the precursor to everything, and you mustn't underestimate how long that sort of thing can take. Once that's done, this drawing is broken down into cutting lists and constructional explanatory drawings. So this is all within SketchUp. I've stripped these drawings, this particular printout, I've stripped them off the customer name so I can show you. These are the sorts of drawings that I give to Brady so he could make things the way they need to be made. You see here references to Carcase names with a letter, so that's what this crib sheet is for. Now our convention is to name each carcass A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. along the bottom, and then when you go up a step, you're carrying on that way. Those then refer to the cutting diagrams, so these are output using Cutlist software, which is so the stuff's output by the CabinetSense plugin or extension within SketchUp. I touch on these things in my SketchUp training series, so if you want to know more, perhaps get watching them. So the Cutlist software optimizes all the parts. The parts are generated from these parametric units. So the Cutlist extension sort of recognizes your what it calls your deck, your top, your left and right side, and your shelves, and just spits them out into the sizes with the material types that are already tagged on the boards. So that's fairly automated. Having said that, there is a lot of manual processing to do as well. So all the angled units, CabinetSense doesn't really cope with angled units, so these were very meticulously drawn and laid out, and then the door sizes were reduced by 2mm each side versus the cabinet. So with reference to these unit names, all the parts have a label on the back edge. I've been trying to obscure the customer name in all that I'm showing to you here, so I'm not showing you everything. But all these parts, which have now been primed by Brady, have labels on their back edges, so we know exactly which part they are. So that's the cutting out of the boards. The next stage will be the sanding of the edges. I'll get Brady to tell you about that in a minute, but first, what he's doing here is working on the CNC manufactured doors. So the way they're made is off the SketchUp model. We manually, in the sense that we are manually sort of positioning with the software these door parts, and there's a lot of checking and correcting to cut out the frames like you see here. And we have to specify the tool paths for the CNC machine to do the rebate like that, hinge holes, even little pinholes for the hinge screws. That's all sent to CNC. So we export a DXF file out of SketchUp in order to do that. But we've continued to have issues with getting the corners squared off. There's communication issues and CAD file issues where although the theory is that a 3mm diameter tool comes in and squares that off after the 6mm diameter tool. It just keeps not happening once we receive the doors. So Brady's then got to manually square them off. So you've been doing that with this corner chisel, right, Brady?
Yeah, before that I was using just a normal chisel.
Yeah, we couldn't find this for ages, and Brady just got them done with a chisel against a guide. We just dug this out. Is that working okay then?
Seems to be working alright. That
Okay.
and then just a square edged.
Would you want to show us that? So you're raising it up on blocks so that you don't get breakout at the back edge, and you're squaring it off from the front edge just to be sure you get your best finish. Hold on a minute, just come around here. So you just push that up to the corner, right? Oh, easy as that? It's come right through, is it? Oh, that's a bonus.
And then just a bit of sandpaper.
Oh, well, that's a big improvement, isn't it? Because we've got, what, 27 doors we just picked up for this job and 2 or 3 others coming up. So that would be over 100 corners to square. So that's nice and fast. Cheers. Now, another area that interests people and that I've been meaning to show more of in the workshop is how we finish the edges of MDF. So this is Medite brand moisture resistant MDF. It's the best one that we found. The hardness and flatness of the face is very good, and if you look at it, it's actually denser on the faces and not so dense in the core, and the green colouring shows that it's the moisture resistant variation. So I thought I'd just ask Brady to show us his process for sanding the edges. It's a mixture of sanding that fluff down and adding a roundover to the Arris, which we just feel is very important to the detailing and the look of it. So do you mind just running us through, Brady, how you would get this door to be finished as well as that, ready for spraying?
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll just grab a door.
And this applies to all the parts, doesn't it? This is basically what you've done with all these parts.
I'll use a 180 grit.
Okay.
It's a bit of use.
That's Abranet, isn't it? Mirka Abranet on the Mirka Deros sander.
Couple of passes, and then you just end up with fairly smooth.
Let's try and get that focused. Yes, it comes up kind of marbled, doesn't it? Yeah.
There's still a few little bits of pits, but what I find is once you've added the primer and then get it
that's the primed finish.
That's undenibbed.
Oh, this stack is waiting to be denibbed. Just having a bit of trouble with focus. Right, okay, so that's a little bit pitted.
Yeah.
But you denib that back.
Denib that back, and then when you put your second coat of primer on, you can tell it's MDF.
And so are you going straight on from the cut edge? You're going straight on with 180 grit? Because we used to work through sometimes 120, 180, 240, but you decided that's overkill. You don't need it.
If I was sanding lots of pieces at once, so if they were the same size like these doors here, they're the same width.
Yeah.
I might start at 120 and then go to 180 just to speed the process up. But
and you find you can do that with the CNC doors because they're so precisely cut. There's no step between the parts.
It's just nice, quick and easy.
And then once you've got that edge smooth, what's your process now for putting the Arris roundover on?
I'll just put a palm router, zip around, and then after I've done both sides, I will take just a random bit of 180 grit again.
Still 180, okay, yeah.
Put it in my hand.
And just smooth them off.
Knock corners off, all the way around, couple of passes. It's done, ready for paint.
And that bit, can you just show that bit close up to the camera? It's a Wielden Tools brand bit. We've moved away from buying trend bits to Wielden Tools because we found they were better and cheaper. So that is, I think, a 2mm radius Arris rounding bit. And if you look at the geometry of that, it's kind of hard to tell, but it's quite clever because you've actually got the radius, but then it sort of comes a bit further off at an ever so slight angle, which means that if you don't position it absolutely precisely on the face, there's a sort of softening angle that avoids you getting a little sort of cut-in step that you can get if you don't use that kind of bit. And once you've primed parts like you have done here, What's the grit that you use for denibbing?
240. But
Okay.
I use a very, very warm 240.
So you've just found from trial and error that works best for
Yeah.
you. It's worn so it cuts a little bit less aggressively.
Yeah, works really well, I find. So I do use this to denib the face. I'll just slip along.
Yeah, that feels really smooth.
I
A
used
bit
to be
roughness
wary
there.
about taking the paint off on the first coat, but
Yeah.
I find once you put a second coat on, it just hides it, and then you're not taking your time.
Yeah, okay.
Being wary about taking the first coat of paint off, and then after I've done the face, I will generally do the faces in a stack, so I might go through the stack, just do the faces with a sander, and then I grab this, which
That's another Mitre brand
Yeah.
product, isn't it? That Finnish company. Very good.
this is 400 grit,
Okay.
and you can hook it up to dust extraction, but
Yeah.
I'll just go along.
So you get a bit more control on that than the orbital.
This is where I see any pits, this is where I'd pay more attention. I'd just come in, I can see from the light where it is, and I'll just pay extra attention to that, try and get rid of it. Don't matter if you take the paint off, but if you see there, you can sort of tell that the paint's somewhat filled the pits.
Yeah, you can see the whiter bits that
Yeah.
have filled in the pits. Okay.
So then you would, after you've done all that, you put your second coat on, and you don't need to do as much denibbing because you've flattened it off in the first coat. It's sealed it. It's fine.
Okay.
Put a primer on, zip across again. Final denib on the second primer, and then top coat.
Okay. So the denibbing process, it's about, I mean, denibbing, the nib means a little spot, raised bit, doesn't it? So it's about taking away the texture of the paint itself, but actually it's more, when you're spraying and you get a smooth finish, it's more about how that water-based finish raises the grain on the MDF, isn't it? So you're just flattening back that raised grain.
Yeah, flatten it all off.
So you do 2 coats of primer.
2 coats of primer, and I tried to just do 1 top coat, but as you've seen in past videos, we end up with a lot of flies, bits of dust. So it's generally more two coats, the top coat.
Now backtracking a little bit from the painting, once all the parts have been cut out in their various materials, and we would cut everything out of every material first, the next process would be pocket holing. So the way we assemble stuff, you'll see it later, is the sides get pocket holed. Have we got any bits knocking about actually that would do? Just trying not to show the oh, there we go, yeah, trying to show the customer name. So these are 2 tall sides of a tall shelved wardrobe. So these are the rear edges of the sides, which will be pocket holed into an 18mm back panel. That's just how we do it for various reasons. We are pocket holing using the manual Craig jig. I think it's called the K5 one. It's the one that this lever at the front moves the clamp. So we're having to put the piece in like that and then just drill in with that drill. So that's another possible investment soon, is the amount of pocket holing we do. It's starting to make sense to get a powered bench mounted pocket hole drilling machine like the Craig Foreman, or possibly even the Step Up. There's some more expensive ones that are pneumatic driven. Yeah, so that's a pretty good overview for you of the first stages in manufacture. As you can see, it's a lot of work just getting the MDF finished to a high standard, and of course there's still coats to put on for Brady for all these parts. Lots of parts for this job. That big job is in the same house as the job that we're going to fit first today. I didn't record the making of that, but the principles will be much the same, except that it's got some curved shelves in it. We often make curved shelves with a jig and a router, but because we're doing so many CNC cut doors, we're able to use the waste on the CNC layout to drop those little curved things in. So that helped us to get that done quicker. There's also a curved plinth, which I'll put photos of into this video that I took earlier.